Hello and welcome back to Biblical Greek Made Easy. This is Class 1 of Module 1, and today is all about those fundamental basics you need to read and translate New Testament Greek. The alphabet, pronunciation, punctuation, all of those basic tools you need in your tool belt, and your Greek journey starts right here. I'm so excited you decided to join us. Job 8:7 says, "Your beginnings will be small, but so prosperous your future will be." I want you to remember that we start here, but we're not stopping here. There's a journey that we're going on. And all of us who know how to read and translate Greek, we all started here. We had to start with learning the alphabet. We had to learn how to pronounce and read words. That's where we're starting. I'm excited you're with us today. Another way to think about this is you got to crawl before you can walk. And so we're learning how to crawl today. We're starting right here. And here's the tip of the day. I want you to get comfortable with what we're learning before you move on, okay? I want you to learn to master the alphabet. I want you to memorize the alphabet, know what the letters are, what they mean, how to write them. I want you to get that part down before you move on, okay? So you don't get lost and struggle later. Get comfortable where you're at before you move on. And remember, this is the learning mastery model, and so you can watch this video as many times as you need to until you master it before you need to go on. Don't worry about the time that it takes. It's going to take a little bit of time. Just go slow and be comfortable. And so let's talk about what we're going to learn today. So we're going to learn the background of the language we're going to learn. I want you to know where Greek comes from. How does modern Greek relate to Koine Greek that we're going to learn? And where does Koine Greek come from? And why was the Bible written in Koine Greek anyway? We're going to learn all of those basics, just a quick history of the language that we're going to learn. Secondly, it all starts with the alphabet. As I suggested before, we're going to learn the alphabet. We're going to talk you through the letters. I'm going to recommend some tools to help you with this, but we start by learning these basic tools like the alphabet. And then we're going to learn punctuation and pronunciation. I want you to learn the Erasmian pronunciation of the words and the letters and the vowels, and we're going to do some practice on that. We're going to get you up to speed with everything you need to know. So let's talk about the background of the Greek language. Greek starts with Mycenaean Greek in the 14th century BCE. So we're talking 3,500 years ago. That's how old this language is. And it stayed in that form until we got to what we call Classical Greek in about the 8th century through about the 4th century BCE, for those few hundred years. So some of the early philosophers like Plato are written in Classical Greek. And you can study Classical Greek and learn it. And then this character in the background of your slide is one of the most important characters when it comes to the Greek language, and that's Alexander the Great. He was a Macedonian general who was very talented at a very young age and conquered a lot of lands, and he was an evangelist. But not evangelist for Christianity, he was an evangelist for Greek culture and the Greek language. And so because of Alexander the Great, a large area of what would later be known as the Roman Empire spoke Greek and learned Greek as a culture. And so Koine means common in Greek. Common Greek or Koine Greek really caught on from about the 4th century BCE, right around the time of Alexander the Great, through about the 4th century CE, or of the Common Era, a few hundred years after Jesus lived and walked the earth. So Koine Greek is the common language. It's the universal language in the 1st century when Christianity is being developed, when our New Testament is being written. And so that's the reason the New Testament is written in Koine Greek. It's in the language of the common people. It's in the language that most people can read and understand and speak so that they could get the gospel out as quickly as possible. And then from about the 4th century CE until about the 15th century, Byzantium Greek catches on, and then about the 15th century to the modern day, modern Greek, what people speak in Greece today, is the language that really catches on. So let's talk about the alphabet. This is what we need to know first in order to understand. So this is the alphabet you see here listed on the screen. And a couple things to say first. I'll take you through this alphabet in just a moment. But there's one letter here, the sigma. You see the arrow dropping down underneath it. The sigma has what we're going to call a final form. And what that means is that regular sigma that you see on the line of the alphabet there, that's the sigma as it's going to show up most of the time, okay? But that one that's underneath, the final form of the sigma, looks like kind of a funny looking S with the top swoosh of the S is just a lot bigger. That's what we call a final form. So if it's going to show up as the last letter in a word, we're going to use the final form. And that's a little bit weird, but a number of ancient languages, Hebrew as well, if you write it as the last letter in a word, you use the final form instead. So it's best just to learn sigma in those two different forms. So let me go ahead and read through the alphabet so that you can understand what's going on. We're going to start from the left. The first couple are going to sound pretty familiar to you probably because they're very close to our English letters. But here we go. It's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, Xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. That's the alphabet for you. Okay, now I don't expect you to have that down already. You're gonna need to practice this and rehearse it a number of times, but you're probably noticing that a number of these letters correspond and actually look really similar to our letters in English. Alpha and beta correspond to A and B. Gamma looks similar to a G. It's out of a little bit of order. It's a little bit different order than we have in our English alphabet. But gamma is similar. Delta you see there. Epsilon. Then we have zeta, which you would expect maybe to be at the end, but zeta's up towards the front there. Then eta, after that, it looks like a fancy letter N, maybe. Eta is a vowel. It's that long A sound. And then theta is like a TH, like a soft TH. Theta, just like we're saying it. By the way, the names of these letters, as you're learning the names of these letters, these tell you what sound they make. So theta makes a TH sound. Then we have iota, which is like a letter I, pronounced like an E kind of sound. E or I. And then kappa, which looks like an English letter K. And then lambda, which looks like a fancy letter L, and it's pronounced like an L. Mu looks like a kind of a stylized M. And then after that, the letter that looks like a V in English, it's actually a nu, the N sound. Mu, nu. So M and N, the equivalents, are right next to each other in Greek as well as English. It's just, don't get confused that it looks like a letter V, but it's actually an N. If it helps you, the V sound doesn't actually show up in the Greek language. And then we have Xi, which is like an X. It's that fancy letter. And this is one of those letters, there's always, in every alphabet, there's certain letters that just aren't used as much, kind of like in English, X and Z. You get a lot of points in Scrabble for those letters because they just don't show up very much. Xi is one of those. And then we have omicron. It looks like an O, like an English letter O, but it's actually going to be pronounced as an ah, just like alpha at the beginning of the alphabet is ah. So that's a common mistake new Greek students encounter, is they want to pronounce omicron like an O sound, like a long O, and it's not pronounced that way. It's the name is an omicron, and that's what sound it makes. Ah, omicron. And then we have P, which you may have learned in math to call pi at some point. It's actually, the Greek letter is P, makes a P sound. And then next to that, the one that looks like a P, like an English letter P, is actually a rho. It's an R sound. And then the sigma there we talked about a little bit, and which is like an S. And then tau, which is a T. And then upsilon, which is like the letter U, and it makes an oo sound. And then we have phi, which is like an F or a PH. And then chi, the one that looks like an X, it's actually like a CHI. It's a breathy kind of letter, like chi, something like that. You got to get that breath going there. But it's kind of, again, just kind of like a CH or kind of a hard K, maybe a little lighter than that. And then second to the last letter, we have a psi, like a PS sound kind of together, a psi. And the way I encourage my students to remember this one, if you think about Poseidon, the Greek god of the ocean, Poseidon has a weapon that he carries. Do you remember what weapon he carries? It's a trident, which looks a lot like a psi, right? It's like he has the letter psi on the end of his trident, and his name is Poseidon, right? It's like it starts with the psi sound. So that's how you can remember that. Kind of clever to have the first letter of your name on the end of your weapon, isn't it? So that's a psi. And then finally, the omega at the end. Omega is also a vowel. It's going to make that long O sound. It looks like a W in English, but it's an omega. And so Jesus says in the book of Revelation that he is the Alpha and the Omega. And we see what's going on here. He's the first and the last, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. Different Hebrew poetic parallel ways to say that same thing. So we see Alpha is the first and Omega is at the end. So let's try saying the alphabet together again. Feel free to rewind this video as many times as you need to make sure you get this down. This will take a little while, but let's start from the beginning. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, Xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Good job. Hopefully you got a few of those. You can keep practicing. And here's the thing. If you're having some trouble with this or you want some help, so I'm going to link to a video in the notes here that's going to help you. There's a video of a guy telling us, he's teaching the alphabet to a group of grade school students, and he puts it in a narrative form where he tells this clever narrative where the letters in the Greek alphabet are characters in this story and things happen. It's really fun. It's a 10-minute video, and you'll pretty much have the alphabet down watching this and practicing a few times. It's pretty clever. It's pretty good education. So give that a watch to make sure you get this alphabet down. I want to show you this slide here too. This is the capital letters, okay? That first slide, those are the lowercase, which is going to show up most of the time, but we are going to encounter the capital letters every now and then, okay? Now, just look over these and be somewhat familiar, especially the ones that are harder, okay? So like the third one there, gamma. Would you know that that was a gamma without kind of having been told? Probably not. It doesn't look anything like the lowercase gamma. The alpha and the beta you would probably guess if you saw them by themselves. The epsilon, that looks like a capital E, you'd probably guess on that. The zeta looks like a capital Z. There's a lot of overlap there. But man, that gamma is strange, isn't it? That delta, the big triangle for the delta, that's where we get that, like the Nile River Delta. That's where we get kind of that phrase because it looks like that letter. But look over these and just make sure you can recognize them because they'll show up occasionally in the New Testament for place names and at the beginning of sentences and that sort of thing. So just glance at these capitals a little bit as you're doing your practice. Now let's talk about some other elements to the alphabet. The gamma, the G sound, is usually a hard G, a G sound like that. It's like the word gamma. It's not J like George, it's G, okay? So grapho is going to be one of the first verbs that we learn. It means I write. We're not going to say girafo, we're going to say grapho, okay? But if gamma is followed by one of these other letters, gamma, kappa, chi, or Xi, so like for instance, if we have two gammas right next to each other, I'm going to show you an example of this in a second, then that first one there is going to be pronounced as like an N sound, like a nu almost. So the famous place this shows up is the word angelos. Notice we have gamma gamma, so it looks like it would be agalos or something. But just a pronunciation note in Greek, when we see that, by the way, this is relatively rare. Angelos is one of probably the most common place that it shows up. But when we see these two letters next to each other, or if gamma is followed by kappa, chi, or Xi, that first gamma we're going to kind of pronounce like a nu sound, an N. So this word is angelos, okay? We got the A on the alpha, and then we have the NG sound because we have gamma, gamma, and then epsilon, and then lambda, and then omicron here. And remember, omicron is pronounced just like the alpha. It's the A sound, so angelos. And then we have that final form of the sigma, angelos. And this means angel or messenger. It's one of the many cognates we're going to learn that sounds very, very similar to our English word, angel. That's where we get the word angel, angelos. angel or messenger. So let's practice saying a few of these words. Here's just a handful of early vocabulary words. These show up many, many times in the New Testament. So we'll start at the top left. The first word there is logos. Logos. Okay. You see the final form sigma there. This means word. Can also mean message, statement, something like that. But mostly it means word. Second in that column there, amen. This means amen or truly. Okay, it's what we say at the end of prayers, but it's also, Jesus is going to say, amen, amen, lego humin, truly, truly, I say to you. Okay, it's going to show up there. Then we have theos. This means God. And by the way, just an English pronunciation thing, English speakers tend to have this accent that they do here. Notice that it's theta epsilon. Epsilon makes an eh sound, not an a sound. So a lot of times, students will say theos, but notice it's not an eta, it's not that long A sound, it's an eh. So it's theos, okay? Now again, if you stumble on that, that's not the unforgivable sin, don't worry about that. But theos is correct, it means God. And then we have kai. This is one of the most common words, I think second most common word in the New Testament. It means and. It can also mean a bunch of other things like even or etc. But it's mostly going to be the word and. Thousands of times in the New Testament. And then top of the right column, Galileia. Okay, that's got a diphthong in it, just like chi does. I'm going to show you diphthongs here in just a minute. Galileia, you see the capital gamma there at the beginning. This means Galilee. This is where Jesus is going to do most of his ministry, is in Galilee. And then angelos, we already saw, means angel or messenger. And then doxa, there you see doxa. It's got that kasi, that kind of ks kind of sound like an English letter X, doxa. And then, oh, that means glory, by the way. Doxa means glory. And then finally, apostolos. Apostolos. Notice all of the vowels in that word all sound the same. Apostolos. And it means apostle. Okay? So that's just a flavor of how we read and pronounce Greek words. Let's talk about a couple other elements that have to do with pronunciation. Every word that begins with a vowel or a row, okay, that R sounding letter, if it begins with a vowel or a row, it's going to have one of two what we call breathing marks, which is going to tell us how to pronounce them. Okay, so the smooth breathing mark is there on the screen for you there. It kind of looks like an apostrophe maybe, or like a floating comma, something like that. And you see in the example angelos, notice how it's got a breathing mark and then it's got an accent behind it as well. And the smooth breathing mark we're not going to pronounce. Okay, vowels, words that start with vowels will have that smooth breathing mark over them. A lot of them will, but we're not going to pronounce it. We just pronounce this angelos. Or there's the first person personal pronoun ego there. You see it's got a breathing mark over the epsilon, okay, and it's got its accent over the omega. Ego, we're not pronouncing that breathing mark there, that smooth breathing mark, because it opens to the left. It's a smooth breathing mark. Most words that start with a vowel are going to have a smooth breathing mark. But there's a handful that are going to have what we call a rough breathing mark, okay? And it looks like a comma or an apostrophe, but it's opening the other direction. It's going to be over the letter again. And this is going to be pronounced like the letter H, okay? There's no letter H in the alphabet that we just talked about, but there is going to be this rough breathing mark, which is going to make an H sound. So you see the word there, rho, alpha, beta, beta, iota, looks like rabbi. It means rabbi, but we're going to kind of put an H on the front of the way we pronounce that. So it's going to be hrabi, hrabi, okay? And then that next word there, hati, see it's omicron, tau, iota, and it's got a rough breathing and an accent there, kind of together. So we're going to pronounce that word hati. That means that, since, or because. It's a transition word that we see a whole bunch of times in the New Testament. That, since, or because. Okay, so hrabi and hati. So you got to look for those breathing marks. Remember, if it opens to the left, the smooth breathing mark, we're not going to voice it, we're not going to pronounce it. If it opens to the right, it's a rough breathing mark, and we're going to pronounce it like an H sound. So let's talk about diphthongs. A diphthong is where two vowels that are right next to each other in a word are going to make up one sound. Okay, so like in English, for example, the word soup, you have the O and the U right next to each other. But notice they're not making an O sound or a U sound. Their powers combine and they make a completely different sound, the OO sound. So we get soup, okay? Now, Greek is going to have some diphthongs too, okay? There's 7 of them, and luckily there's 7 English words that Mounce gives us, Bill Mounce from the textbook. He's going to give us these 7 English words that are going to equate to Greek diphthongs, and this will make it super easy to remember Greek diphthongs once you get it in your head, okay? And here's the list. First English word is aisle, like aisle at the grocery store, okay? And alpha iota is the diphthong that represents. And you see, it looks like it's AI at the beginning of the English word, corresponds to the alpha iota, and that's how you're going to pronounce it. It's going to be an I sound, like an aisle, okay? The next one there, 8, like the number 8 spelled out, is epsilon iota, corresponding to the EI there, and it's going to be pronounced that same way, a long A, like 8A, okay? And then oil, the OI corresponds to the omicron iota, and it's going to be pronounced just like that vowel sound in oil, oi, oi, okay? And then sauerkraut, the AU, actually there's 2 AUs that are pronounced the same way in sauerkraut. The first half rhymes with the second half. And that alpha upsilon diphthong is going to be pronounced that same way. It's ow, that ow sound, okay? And then soup, our example on the previous slide, the OU corresponds to the omicron upsilon, so it's going to be an oo sound. Anytime you see that omicron upsilon, it's going to be an oo, okay? And then sweet, like hotel suite, that UI in sweet, that like it sounds kind of like a WI sound, the we, that's how we're going to pronounce upsilon iota, we. So there's one word we're going to encounter. It's going to be the word for sun, S-O-N, and it's going to be huios. It's going to have a rough breathing over that diphthong with an omicron sigma on the end, and it's going to be huios, means sun. And then, finally, the last of the diphthongs is feud. And that EU sound in feud is how you're going to pronounce the epsilon upsilon diphthong in Greek. So it's going to be like you, like almost like a Y-O-O or a Y-O-U, you kind of sound. Okay. Now, the quicker you can memorize these 7 words, the better. Because when you encounter something that you're reading here in the first few weeks that you're doing this, and you're not sure how to pronounce it, you can just blast through these 7 words in your mind, and it'll help you figure them out. So what you want to remember is aisle, 8, oil, sauerkraut, soup, sweet, feud. Aisle, 8, oil, sauerkraut, soup, sweet, feud. The faster you get those down, the better it'll help you read and pronounce the New Testament Greek. All right, there's also what we call improper diphthongs, okay? Just pointing these out to you. You don't need to stress about these too much, but there's certain letters, and they're vowels, and they're strong vowels, okay? And they're going to be a diphthong, but they're going to take the iota as what we call a subscript. It's going to be below the line. And you see the examples on the slide here. There's an iota down there, but it's like a tiny little baby iota that's underneath, okay? It's like the strong vowel pushes the iota out of line, so to speak, and it's going to be underneath. Now, this is not going to affect pronunciation, okay? The eta there with the iota underneath it is still going to be pronounced A, like an eta. And the alpha in the middle with the iota subscript underneath it is still going to be pronounced ah, like an alpha. And the omega is still going to be pronounced O, like an omega, even though it has the iota subscript underneath. But these iota subscripts will give us hints to different cases and different things going on in words. We'll want to notice those, and these are improper diphthongs. No need to memorize these, just know that this can happen. Okay? Now, let's talk about punctuation. There's a number of different punctuation marks in Greek, not quite as many as English, but these are the four we're going to talk about. There's the comma, there's the period, there's the semicolon, and there's the question mark. Okay? Now, good news, the comma and the period are the exact same in English. If you're reading a sentence or something in the New Testament or anywhere in Greek, if you see what looks like a comma, it's a comma. And if you see something that looks like a period, it's a period. Okay? That's really easy. The semicolon is a little bit different, and I've given you an example here. The semicolon is kind of like a period that's floating above the line. You see on the example word angelos there, see how the semicolon at the end, it's up high. It's not a dot with a comma underneath it. It's just the dot. That's the semicolon, okay? Then the question mark actually looks like a semicolon. It's the dot with the comma underneath. That's a question mark in Greek, and that's the one that students tend to struggle with early on because they fail to recognize that that's a question mark, that it's signaling a question, because that's a pretty important one when you're reading and translating the New Testament, to notice that a question is being asked. That question mark is going to be important. And so maybe make some flashcards to help you with these couple of punctuation marks to make sure you get them. Semicolon and question mark are the two you need to know, because comma and period are the same. All right, let's review what we've learned today. We went through a brief history of the Greek language, how an ancient language changed and morphed all the way up until modern day Greek. They're different languages, certainly with a lot of similarities, but our Bible was written in Koine Greek because that was the universal language of the time. And they wanted the message to be able to get out to as many people as possible. And that's why we're learning Koine Greek, is because it's the language that the New Testament was written in. We learned the alphabet. You might need to keep practicing, but getting that alphabet down, getting comfortable with saying alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. You want to be able to do it fast. You want to get it down. You want to master it. You want to know what those letters mean. It's going to take some time, but that's where it all starts. Then we also talked about pronunciation and syllabification. We practiced reading some words and putting those letters, those consonants, and those vowel sounds together to pronounce some Greek words. As you start wading into vocabulary, you're going to see how this all works with the different syllables and the different words and all that. Then we talked about breathing marks. There's smooth breathing marks that open to the left that we don't voice or pronounce when we're reading. And then there's rough breathing marks that open to the right that are pronounced like an H. And remember, every word that starts with a vowel, or a row for that matter, is going to have a breathing mark, and we need to pay attention to that. Is it a rough breathing mark or a smooth breathing mark? And then we talked about the 7 different diphthongs that show up in Greek, and we had those 7 English words that correspond: aisle, 8, oil, sauerkraut, soup, sweet, feud. Remember those as quickly as possible because they'll help you and your pronunciation in these early days. And finally, we talked about the punctuation marks, the how we end sentences, how we add periods and commas and question marks and colons and all those sorts of things. Those are the basics to help you get started. And with these tools, you'll be able to take steps forward, practice reading a little bit, get comfortable, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Happy studying.